They did it, so it's possible. So I'm gonna do it. Tools don't make you a good detailer, but they can help your process and your efficiency. Every step of the way, a door's been opened. It's not the door we thought would be open, but like, it's like, well, that door's open. All these others are closed. Guess we're going through that door, right?
All right. How's it going?
Good, sir. How are you?
Doing great. It's exciting because we're starting our podcast. We're finally reaching that side of the media.
We are starting a podcast, finally.
Finally, it took long enough.
Yeah.
I know we've been planning this for a little while now.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. So, you want to give the audience some insight on why we started a podcast?
Yeah. So this hopefully will give our clients better insight into who we are, what we are about, more so than just quick detailing videos. And in today's age, especially local business, I think the more you can connect and the more you can build that trust, I think that's only going to help us in the long term. And even if nobody watches it, at least we will have it recorded for our own prosperity. So hopefully, when we hit the 7-figure marks, we can look back and say, man, remember when we started that one podcast?
Yeah. And plus, it's great digital footprint, too. So
Yeah. Backlinks, SEO.
Yeah.
Marketing.
But just to get started, we can start with your journey of being on track to 7 figures.
Yep.
Before you start 4-hour detail.
Yep.
So was the original plan before you even got into detailing?
I was definitely not on track for 7 figures before detailing, to clarify. Yeah, so me and my wife, high school sweethearts, get married in 2015. Originally from Atlanta, moved for seminary, went to Southwestern in 2015. Didn't know anybody, had no money, had no jobs. Sounds crazy now, like I don't. And we were young too, we were 22. Just celebrated our 9th wedding anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. But yeah, like, if somebody came to me 22 and they're like, hey, we're going to move across the country. We don't have jobs. We don't have money. We don't have connections. But, like, it's a great idea, right? I'd be like, no, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what we did. It's what we felt like the Lord was calling for us. Again, which doesn't make any sense looking back on it, but made total sense in our minds doing it. So 2015 we come out to seminary, and not even like, honestly I wasn't even sure like what I wanted to do. I got, like you mentioned, I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I thought I was going to be a counselor, and then I thought like I'm going to be a pastor, and then I get to seminary and very quickly realized, nope, not going to do that. So then really fell in love with philosophy, but I was like, what are you going to do with a philosophy degree? Besides teach philosophy, so I was like, all right, yeah, I'll teach philosophy. So they didn't even have a philosophy degree. They had an apologetics degree, so I started with that. And then they rolled out a philosophy degree, and there was so much overlap, they were like, hey, you can basically pick up a second master's if you just take these other classes. I was like, cool, 2 masters sounds pretty good. I'll take that. So picked up that one, get to the end of graduating, and they're like, by the way, did you go to a Bible college for your undergrad? I was like, no. They're like, oh, you got to take all these other classes. I was like, I didn't know that. They're like, yeah, but if you take a couple more classes, you can pick up a theological studies degree. And I was like, guess I'm getting 3 masters. So that's how I wound up with 3 masters, which definitely was not the plan.
What about the bachelor's?
The bachelor's? Man, the bachelor's I had even less idea of what I was doing.
Another question is, why come to Texas to do that with no connections, no family?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, me and my wife, we started dating end of high school, senior year, went to different colleges. So we were about an hour and a half apart. So we had already dated for 4 years. I guess you call it long distance. Again, hour and a half apart, it's not that far. But like, we knew we wanted to get married. So we did think about like, do I go to seminary? And we knew seminary was going to be like 4 years. So it was like, do we spend another 4 years apart and then get married at the end of seminary? I was like, or do we just get married now and like start our lives together? So we really didn't want to spend another 4 years apart. So then it's like, okay, well, she needs a place where she can have a job. So actually, my neighbor at the time was on the board of trustees of this little school called Gardner Webb. And he was like, hey, you come here, I'll take care of you. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So we go up there and visit. It's a small school in North Carolina. And like, have you ever heard that expression, like one stoplight town? This was literally a one stoplight town.
Really?
It literally only had one stoplight. So we like toured the campus is beautiful and like, it was awesome. And then he took us to the one like restaurant. It was this one Italian place. It had a Piggly Wiggly. The big news is I think they had just got like a Church's chicken. And it was like, whoa. With like,
y'all balling.
Yeah, they made it.
Yeah, they made it.
And so I was like, I love the school, but I'm like where, like, what is my wife gonna do? Work at Piggly Wiggly? Like, I'm not, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that was kind of out. So then it was just like looking at the schools like around the country, and then DFW was just attractive because it was exploding back then. It's still exploding now. We're still one of the fastest growing cities in the country, not a country. Even though Texas feels like a country.
100%.
So yeah, it really just came down to like the city and the area and feeling like, again, we didn't have connections, but it seemed like there was enough opportunity to where we could find connections. So we went and visited the school, drove out here 12 hours straight, visited, drove back 12 hours. We just loved it. And it was actually always supposed to be just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Because both of our families are really back in Atlanta. So it was like, all right, we'll go out here, pick up my degree, and then we'll move back. But then once we got here, really loved the area and then really developed really strong, good friendships and just didn't want to leave. And so we never have. We've stayed. So.
Wow. And of course, getting 3 masters and like 1 bachelor, that sounds totally expensive. Because I'm starting school now, and just in community, it's kind of like, dang. So what kind of like, what financially got you through all of that? Because also, your wife didn't have a job.
Yeah.
Not a Piggly Wiggly, right?
Yeah. So I graduated my undergrad with about $25K in student loan debt. Thankfully, we've always been really diligent about paying debt off, so we paid that off actually really quickly. And then seminary, little seminary trick, if you are a member of a Southern Baptist church and you go to a Southern Baptist seminary, they cut your tuition by 50%. So you get 50% off just right off the bat.
Wow.
So from that perspective, we were actually able to just cash flow it, and we didn't have to take out any loans or anything. So it took me 5 years to get 3 masters, but thankfully I got out of there without any debt. So that was really nice. And then, yes, eventually we got jobs. And student housing too. Student housing rent was like $400 a month or something.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was nice. It was a little townhome, super thin walls. You could hear babies crying, but it was cool. It was a good time in our marriage early on. I've been really blessed. We've had a really great marriage. So yeah.
Well, obviously, you're doing all this work, and you're like, okay, where do I work from here? What kind of job you had in mind after seminary? Because you did switch a lot.
Yeah. So when I got here, I took literally the first job I could find, which was actually Lifeway, which I don't even know if Lifeway exists anymore. I feel like they went bankrupt, which...
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of Lifeway?
Never at all. Even Piggly Wiggly. I was like, what are you talking about?
Bro, how have you not heard of Piggly Wiggly?
Not at all.
Wow, that's wild. Okay, first off, Piggly Wiggly is like country. I could say some words, but I don't want to offend some people. But it's a grocery store.
What? I thought it was like a hot dog diner.
No. It's like a low. Again, I don't want to offend people, but like it's not good.
I'll say it. So like Walmart, but like a bad version of Walmart. I already shop at Walmart, so it's not that bad.
It is way below Walmart.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a. Anywho.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Piggly Wiggly.
Okay.
Number 2, Lifeway is. They used to be huge when like bookstores were a thing, but like that was a Christian think like Chris Tomlin and VeggieTales and like.
Okay.
If churches would buy like Bible studies, you could go buy like just bulk Bible studies. So you'd have churches come in and drop like actually some crazy money. And then like communion too, they sold all the like those communion trays.
Yes.
So especially if you think you got like a big church, like that's where you would go to get your like church supplies and stuff.
I wonder why they went out of business.
Because nobody came.
I bet
You can just buy everything online now. Amazon,
oh yeah,
bro.
you're right.
So, yeah, but I was like, hey, going to seminary. They're like, oh, you must be a good Christian young lad. We'll hire you. But I was making like minimum wage. So I started there, and then my wife got a job actually at a marketing company. She was the like front office receptionist admin. She eventually morphed into like doing everything for that company.
Wow.
But the main bread and butter of that company was a call center that sold dental insurance. And so after a while, I was like, I'm really tired of Lifeway, making minimum wage. So got hired on with that company and then worked through that company all through seminary, which they were actually really great because they were super flexible with my school schedule. And you could make decent money because it was all sales, it was all commission. So I think we tallied, I think I took like 36,000 phone calls, sold about $1 million worth of dental insurance, which like might not sound like a lot in the insurance world.
That sounds like a lot. What are you talking about?
Well, like, I mean, some of these insurance plans, but like our plans were like $100, right? So you got to think how many plans I sold to get to $1 million. But eventually kind of learned to hate it because like one of the things that I really like about our company, we'll talk more about this later, but like we are definitely a luxury service. Like people don't have to have this.
Yeah.
So if they're getting it, it's because they want it, right? Versus people who like were calling us were like, my tooth hurts, get me out of pain. Like nobody wants to be in that situation. So like most of your callers are not happy. And then they're like, why doesn't the plan do this? You told me this? And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. I got the recording, I can prove it. But anyways, like, people just weren't happy. And so it was kind of like, have you seen Elf?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I seen it.
Okay.
I didn't enjoy it, so
Okay.
I don't remember it.
So, all right. So very like, one of the very first scenes in Elf, he's testing the Jack in the Box, right?
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. And like he knows it's coming.
Yeah.
And it like pops up. That is basically like the best way I can describe selling dental insurance of like every time the phone rang, you knew at least once a day somebody was going to yell at you. But like you didn't know where it was going to be. So it was like, are you going to yell at me?
Yeah.
Are you going to yell at me? And then like again, like once a day somebody would be like, you mother. I'm like, whoa, bro, calm down. It's not that serious.
I'm just doing my job, bro.
Yeah. So anyways, kind of like ended up resenting that job because getting yelled at is not fun. But again, shout out to that company if any of y'all are watching. It was a good environment. They were super flexible, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But that got me through seminary, and then like I said, we didn't have to take out loans. And then COVID hits, and everything shuts down. Especially like think about dentists, like nobody's sticking their hand in other people's mouths because we had all the masks and everything. So like dentists were like completely shut down. Well, if you're not going to the dentist, you're not buying dental insurance. So the company tanked, and they had to lay off 50%. And of course, I was on the chopping block. So got the call, got laid off, and was like, all right, now what? So
Wow. So did you work with your wife in that company since she turned to doing everything for them?
yeah, so she was there. She was there for like a year or two. She was there a little bit, so we overlapped by like a year.
Okay.
And then she eventually took a job at Lockheed, making like double what that company was paying her. And then has been at Lockheed ever since and has loved it. But yeah, we got to overlap a little bit, which was cool, to see each other, and you know, you get lunch together, go hang out. They had like a pool table, they had pickleball, so you like go play pool or pickleball or something.
Yeah, so we just had a company meeting, and it was at pickleball, and you were killing everybody, so.
I mean, I used to be a lot better, but I would say, yeah, Bala was pretty good, Jared was pretty good, Zach's pretty good, yeah. I think
I did get at the end, though.
Yeah. That's right.
I haven't even explained myself. Same with chess. Chess, you had a lot of off time in that job, did you?
Oh yeah, I changed company policy.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this is call center, right? But they were also a marketing company, so they would bring in marketing clients and show them around because it was an impressive facility.
Yeah.
But it was inbound calls only, so you're only working basically when somebody calls you, and some days are crazy, you're on the phone all the time. Other times, like, nobody's calling, but they don't want you just, like, on YouTube watching whatever, because then that looks bad if they bring in marketing clients. So they sent out this memo, and they were like, okay, when you're not on the phone, you can read, you can, like, do these sales trainings. I think there's a couple other things, but one of the things they said is you could play chess, because, like, chess is intellectual, right?
Yeah.
It looks good. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want to do any of those other things. Actually, a lot of times I would do homework, reading metaphysics and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't know how to play chess, but I'll learn. So the guy next to me taught me, and I was like, all right, cool. So then I like just started playing bots, started getting better, and then I got the guy on the other side of me. I was like, hey, you want to play? And, you know, it's all online, so like you just create an account and you just play.
Yeah.
So then we started playing. Well, then like we had several aisles, and then eventually like people would walk by and they're like, oh, you playing chess? I'm like, yeah, you want to play? They're like, yeah. So we'd have all these games, and eventually it got to the point the entire call center is like now playing chess, and I guess they thought it was affecting productivity, which it might have been, but they made a rule. They were like, all right, no more chess.
Yeah.
So
that's the reason you got fired.
That was definitely not the reason I got fired.
Messing up productivity.
Nah.
Keep moving.
But that was, yeah.
Moving forward, you're unemployed now.
Yep.
So like, what's going through your brain? What's happening? You're like, oh, I got to provide. We're here in Texas. Nobody sees you. I'm unemployed. So what's going through your head?
Yeah, so it's COVID. Nobody knows what's going on. We actually just had our first child, our daughter, Sophia. So, yeah, unemployed, can't get a job, and just had first kid. And I'm like, cool, now what? And so I had actually just graduated, so I was like, well, hold up, let me back up.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, I'll just go get a PhD. But at this point, my wife's been at Lockheed for a few years at this point, and it's a career. She loves it. Again, we have really strong community here. Like, we don't want to leave Fort Worth at this point. And the way getting a college education works, or trying to get a job at a college, it's when you get into whatever school you're going to PhD for, they have almost a responsibility to try to get you a job. right? Because if this school has a bunch of graduates that are all unemployed, it looks really bad on that school, right? But the job pool is so limited because think about a college professor. Like, if your college professor has that job, how often is he leaving? Probably not a lot. So there's very few number of jobs. So therefore, like, actually getting into school is some of the hardest, like, application rates. And you pretty much have to get into the best school if you want to have a shot at a job. All that being said, like, we would have had to move, and we didn't want to do that. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to move, but I got 3 masters. I could teach at the high school, maybe the community college level, right? So I go to all these schools, and I'm like, hey, I have 3 masters. And they're like, okay, first question, do you have any experience? And I was like, no, not really. I just graduated. They're like, really, really wish you had experience. The age-old question, how do you get a job without experience, right?
Well, you have 3 masters. That is
Yeah, I thought that counted for something. Like, can I get my foot in the door?
Yeah.
And so that was objection number 1. And then objection number 2, schools would be like, hey, we really like you. We want to offer you a job. And I'd be like, cool, but we don't know what we're doing. I was like, okay. They're like, we don't know what tuition or like what enrollment looks like. We don't know what classes we're going to offer. We don't even know if we're going to have school. Because you remember back in the early days of COVID, like, nobody knew like what was going on.
Yeah.
So especially schools, because they're like, can we meet in person? Do we meet online? Like, what do we do? Yeah, so I would say the tipping point came, I finally got, there was this one school I really wanted to teach at. I'm not going to say the name, but they had 2 positions open. They had a high school senior philosophy class, and they had a kindergarten position. And I was like, I would love high school senior philosophy class.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I'm qualified for. I've got a master's. Yeah, I got a master's in philosophy. I can teach some high schoolers.
Easy enough.
Yeah. So anyways, I apply. I get an interview. The interview invitation doesn't say what position it's for. But I was like, come on. It's got to be the philosophy one, right? So call in this interview. They start, and one of her first questions is like, because I talked about like I had done some teaching in like small groups and church settings and stuff like that, and she was like, seems like a lot of your experiences with like young adults, and I was like, yeah, I don't see why that's a problem. Like high school seniors, I don't know if you can call them adults, but like basically the same thing, right?
Adults,
Yeah. So she was like, how do you feel you would do with like younger age kids? So I'm thinking like, okay, like we talking like what, middle school? Like, okay.
Freshman?
Yeah, like sure, I could do that. And then she was like, what about the kindergarten age? And I was like, nah, that's not me.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, well that's what we're looking for. And like that crushed me. And I was like, that's it. I quit. So hung up that. I literally like closed the shades in my bedroom and I just went to sleep because I was like, I don't know what else to do. I was like, that's it. Yeah, so that hurt. And then it was that point of like, all right, I got to do something. Like, I can't just sit around here and not try to help out my family and my newborn daughter.
So once you were crushed, all this happened. Do you ever think I went all this seminary for no reason? Like what? Like this was a huge waste of my life.
I mean a little bit, but like it's tough, and I think a lot of that is just you got to lean into faith of like every step of the way a door's been opened. It's not the door we thought would be opened, but like it's like, well, that door's open. All these others are closed. Guess we're going through that door, right? And I've seen the same thing, and again, we'll talk about more like the evolution of detailing. But like I never initially thought detailing would be a thing. Like I thought it would be kind of like a side gig. But then like door opened. Okay, go through that. That door's open. All right, let's go through that. Right? And so, I mean, I still have dreams. I would love to go back and get my PhD in philosophy. So hopefully it's not a total waste. And again, it was a really good time in our marriage, and I think spiritually I grew a lot. But yeah, hopefully it's not a total waste. But yeah, on the day-to-day basis, I'm not talking about the metaphysics of the soul so much now. So.
Yeah, not really.
No.
Unless I ask you some crazy question, I guess it's coming to use, teaching me a little bit.
Yeah. I used to know a lot more. I wrote my thesis on God and time, and I don't think I could understand a single page of that paper now.
Yeah, once you ask the question. Anyway, we'll say that for later because, yeah, that's a crazy question.
Subscribe
For
that next podcast.
So, my question, did you have any experience in detailing before you started detailing? Or did you just start out the blue, like, oh, I can make some money quick? Was it, what was the idea there?
Yeah, so my first car, I think it was a 94. I want to say 94. I could be wrong. But I think it was a 94 Ford Ranger. Shout out, Dad. Thank you for that. Manual, where I learned to drive manual. But, I mean, by the time I got it, like, wasn't the nicest, but it was awesome because it got me from A to B. So I went from that to a Ford Explorer Sport Track where the tailgate was, like, bent in, dented in. I think it was the driver passenger door didn't work. So like if you wanted to get in the back, you had to like come in, open that. One of the windows didn't work. The AC didn't work. I drove that. Yeah, it was not good. But we paid cash for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Texas summers on that thing sucked.
I had a 2003 Toyota Avalon. It was a luxury car, and it's day. But it didn't held up right, and so...
It's a Toyota.
No, dude.
No?
The engine's fine. Everything was fine.
Okay.
But, yeah, the AC didn't work. Heater didn't work. To open my door, I had to put the window down, then open the door out. And, like, this is high school, so I'm embarrassed. I'm like... So I park far away, Anyway,
Yeah.
But, yeah, my car's pretty jacked up, too.
Yeah.
And also, radio blew up.
Like actually blew up, or, like, just stopped working?
Well, I'm driving.
Those are two different things.
I was driving, and it said, pew. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And music stopped. It was loud, like a music bang. And I was like, dang, what happened? And
dude, you just went too hard.
I was bumping.
Was it Drake?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. Broadway. If y'all know, you know.
Okay.
Anyway, back to
so the car. Okay. So eventually, came time and was like, hey, I'd really like to have AC in the car. Let's get a new car. So we ended up getting a Mazda CX-5, like, top trim level, which, like, not a super nice car, but to me, like, dude, I was balling.
Yeah.
And I had never, like, had anything nice before, so I'm like, okay, well, I just paid all this money. Hopefully we have this car for a long time. How do I take care of it?
Wait, is that your wife's cars now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that was the test subject.
It was my car, and then it became my wife's car.
Yeah.
But it was mine.
Yeah.
Somehow I got the worst car, even though that was my car.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
But you deserve it, because you're the best, honey. But anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how do I take care of this thing? So I just started Googling, like, literally how do I don't even think I knew the word detailing. And then I just went on YouTube and I was like, oh, there's this thing called detailing. I was like, that's just a car wash, right? And then everybody was like, no, it's fancy. It's better. You got to detail your car. You got to take brushes and just brush it, everything.
Yeah. Put some love into it.
Yeah. And, but, like, I totally ate it up. I was like, this is amazing. So, like, I just started getting products, started messing around with stuff, like, polished it, ceramic coated, still got some high spots on it.
I was about to say, like, that's why I said test subject, because there's some really crazy high spots on that.
Some. There's not that many.
There's some.
There's some.
But
we don't get high spots now.
the size of those high spots are kind of...
Bro.
It was your first time, so I
Yeah.
respect it. We don't get high spots anymore. We came a long way.
Yeah. So anyways, that's how I got into it. And then, like, kind of started taking care of friends and family's cars. And just, again, like, I was like, oh, I'll just make some money on the side, right? And then it just, like, just kind of kept going from there, really.
So you're telling me Fort Worth Auto Detail started with Google and YouTube?
Yeah.
That's,
For sure.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, like, that's the good and bad thing about detailing is the barrier to entry is super low. Like, I think I got started with, like, $500.
Really?
Right? Yeah. Like, you need a pressure washer, you need some chemicals, and, like, that's it. You can call yourself a detailer. So that's cool, but from a consumer perspective, too, it can be hard to be like, oh, this detailer told me he'd do it for $20. Well, we charge $200. Like, I'll just go with the $20. And I'm like, bro, we are operating on, there's levels to this game.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but, like, and both people are saying, like, oh, full detail. I'm like, all right, what's a full detail? Is a wash and a vacuum a full detail? Like, technically, I wash the outside and I vacuum the inside, but, like, that's way different than our full detail, right?
Yeah.
So, again, it's nice that anybody can get into this game, but, yeah, there's levels to it.
So what did the interior look like with $500? You don't have a extractor, you don't have a steamer.
I think I had a steamer. I had a really bad steamer. I think I had a steamer and a vacuum. I mean, you think about it, like, steamer, vacuum, APC, right?
Yeah.
You good. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a Tornador. We don't have a good steamer. We don't have extractor. We don't even have a good vacuum. So, like, you can do it, but that's the thing, too, of, like, tools don't make you a good detailer, but they can help your process and your efficiency. So, like, it actually really worked out. So, again, COVID, everybody's staying home, nobody's going anywhere, but I'm just solo, man. So I would spend 8 hours on a full detail. But when I would tell people, like, hey, I need your car for 8 hours, they'd just be like, cool, we're not going anywhere, so, like, take as much time as you need. Versus now, like, I feel like if I told somebody 8 hours for a full detail, they'd be like, bye. Like, no, I got places to go, you know.
Yeah.
But now, you know, we can knock out a full detail in, like, a couple hours.
So what was the point? It was like, I want to make this my career. Because you're doing it for a side gig.
Yeah. So when I get laid off, so this is June 2020. Okay? So then, like, June 2020 to December, for those 6 months, we're like, I'm kind of playing around with the idea. But again, like, still looking at trying to grab a teaching job, just taking side gigs here and there. Also, shout out, nobody had the name Fort Worth Auto Detail. I don't really understand how that's possible because that seems super obvious to me, but I was like, all right, cool. So I took that name, registered DBA, EIN, LLC, ABCD, all the good alphabet registration things that you got to do. Mm-hmm. So December comes, I still ain't got a teaching job, and we're going into 2021. And I remember going into 2021 talking to my wife, and I was like, I think I could do this. And she was like detailing? I'm like, yeah, like I think I want to go full time. Because again, like I was just kind of playing around with it. I was like, what if 2021, like go full time, let's just see what happens. Also, I was getting, if you remember back then when the government was just passing out money.
Yeah.
So I was getting these unemployment checks, and I was like, we don't have to have the detailing business because we had those unemployment checks. So I was like, let's try the detailing thing. If it doesn't work, worst case, we still have the unemployment checks. And then hopefully schools come back around and, like, worst case, I pick up a teaching job, right? So she was like, all right, that's what you want to do. So 2021, we go full time. It's just me. And so talking like going out when super cold like it is today, like
Yeah, I was
20.
about to ask, like, because we had a snowstorm, right?
Mhm.
And then blazing heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any problems with that occurred?
Yeah, so I mean the cold wasn't too bad because you layer up. Honestly, the summers were the worst because again it would take me 8 hours, and so like you're just working outside all day. So I actually wound up in the ER one time. I got really bad chest pains. Thought I was like having a heart attack. Turns out I was like incredibly dehydrated and about to pass out. Yeah, so I don't recommend it. I feel bad for all you mobile detailers out there. I mean, that's what you want to do. Respect the hustle, respect the grind, but yeah, very happy we now have our own shop and we don't have to detail on the elements. Um, but yeah, it was just me that first year. We did about 50K and I was like, cool, let's keep going. So
How soon later did you get the first shop?
we got the shop, man, let's see, it's 2024, right?
Yeah.
So we got the shop, we were in the shop all last year. So that means we got the shop in 22?
Had to be because Jared, Alberto, our coworkers, they didn't come on until early.
They came on early 23. Yeah, we already had the shop. Okay, yeah, so we got the shop spring of 22. Yeah, so first year was just me, and then early 22 hired my first employee, and then spring of 22 we got the shop.
I can't even just imagine your family's reaction. Not your wife's, but your mom, your dad. Because first it's like, oh, you're going to come back to Georgia. Oh, you're staying in Texas? That's cool. You're unemployed? You coming back? Nah, that's cool. You're starting a detail business? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like my parents are cool. I don't know if they're going to watch this whole thing. But I feel like my grandma was like, why are y'all not coming back? Shout out, I love you, Nana, if you watch this.
Shout out, Nana.
We'll cut that. Don't let Nana see this. But yeah, like again, my whole family is like in a 10-minute radius, and they've grown up like that's always been the case. So not like it's just like the case now. Like it's been the case for like 30 plus years. And I got a big family, like got a bunch of aunts, uncles, and cousins and stuff like that. And so we were kind of like the black sheep. And yeah, she was always like, when you coming back? Even now, she's like, when you coming back?
Really?
I'm like, never? Like, no. Yeah, but no, they're, thankfully, I mean, if they're not cool with it, they don't say much. But again, the big thing's been our, like, the friend group and the relationships that we've developed out here. I mean, we lean on those a lot. So yeah, I don't know where we'd be without those.
Wow, that's crazy. So you have your own shop. When did you develop a business plan? Once you got the shop, or as soon as you first started? Because I feel like you had no idea what you're doing, and you wasn't trained to do this. So what was the original business plan?
Bro, I don't even know if I still have a business plan.
You're just going with the flow. That's what you're doing. You're telling me I'm working, but you're going under the flow.
Yeah. No, so like, I mean, it's no secret, like, we're looking at people that have done it before, right? Even, I think about, like, even when I'm in school, like, I'm just reading about other people and, like, their ideas. It's only when you get to the highest levels that, like, you start creating, like, you take other people's ideas and you build upon it.
Yeah.
But until you reach that, like, end master's, PhD level, you're all just reading and learning on people that have done it before. So that's kind of how I approached it here, building the business of, like, okay, who's done it before? What does that look like? They did it, so it's possible. So I'm going to do it. It's like the 4-minute mile. I can't remember the dude's name, but like forever it was thought you cannot run faster than a 4-minute mile. Dude breaks it. Within the next year, there's like 12 other guys that break it because they're like, oh, it's possible. He did it. We can do it. So for for us, the main kind of group that I've looked up to is Chicago Auto Pros. They were super early on YouTube, so that's kind of where they blew up. But they've got, I can't remember how big their shop is. I think it's like 13,000 square feet. But they're doing like 7-8 figures a year in revenue. And I was like, okay, it's possible. Like, I've seen it. We've done training up there. We've gone up there. I know those guys. Still text them. Done some business training with them. But so my whole thing was like, okay, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Just do what they do, right? So that's kind of all the guiding like factors of our decisions that I feel like I've tried to make is like, so I think for one of the examples is you'll hear a lot of detailers talk about like build your clientele on maintenance details, right? Yeah. Which makes sense, right? It's when you acquire, it's a lot cheaper to remarket to an existing customer than it is to acquire a new customer, right? So the thought is if you have a customer, just get them in for maintenance details. But I looked at Chicago and I'm like, that's not what they're doing. Like, they're just doing high-end services. So what I'm not saying is like, don't do maintenance details, that we don't do maintenance details, but that's not like what I'm trying to build the foundation on. And so that's just one example. But again, basically just looking at what are they doing, what works, and let's just build that here, because looking at the other shops in the area, like nobody's doing it like that. So I'm like, okay, why not us, you know? So, but yes, I do have a direction, I have a vision, I have an understanding, and then I've had to write business plans, mostly for banks, but I don't know, I don't like rely heavily on that. It's more what's in my mind and what's the vision, what do we want this to look like, right?
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up, your mentors were these people online, Chicago Auto Pros, and so you took their advice, you applied it, and now you're here. 0 to 7.
0 to 7.
Yeah.
Hopefully 7.
Hopefully 7.
Hopefully 7.
Hopefully.
We gonna do it.
We're gonna do it.
We gonna do it.
You know why?
What?
God did.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry.
Really?
Sorry.
Wow.
I wanted to say it earlier when you said something, but anyway. This was fun. Thank you. Thank you for starting this and having us here.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm excited for this. Definitely subscribe, follow our journey. We got a lot more coming up. We're looking at moving to a new location, kind of jumping ahead, spoiler alert, but yeah, we got a lot more to talk about, and the ups and downs and trials of the business, and there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, so yeah, stay tuned.
See you all next time.
See you next time.